All right. Hey, everybody. Must be Saturday night in West Kelowna. So, hopefully people are going to get on board real quick and we'll get started. I see the comments from my initial announcement are already displayed. So that's pretty good. I'm just going to wait for everyone to get on board and hopefully learn a few things, some more research like you see there in the lower track of my picture there. Bad news for Fitbit calorie trackers and if it fits your macros. So I'm going to get into that once the audience builds up a little bit. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story while I'm waiting. Get people on board. A lot of the times in this industry, when you've been around as long as I have, you like when research bears you out. You like being right. You like being proven right about something, especially if you've been criticized or attacked for saying it before, as I have. But you also, sometimes in this industry, you don't like being right. And these things are connected tonight in terms of a story I'm going to tell you. So about a year and a half ago, one of the people I see regularly on my weekly rounds doing my chores and running my errands. I talk to everybody I see, grocery store, bank, whatever. I'm pretty friendly and outgoing that way. So about a year and a half ago, there was a lady I see regularly at grocery store, works there. I would always say hi, etc. And I had noticed that, noticeably she had lost weight. And a couple of times saying hi, I also noticed that she wanted to talk and it was obvious that I was into fitness, etc. So, long story short, in and around this time, she sort of stopped me in the middle of shopping, and I congratulated her on her weight loss. And then, of course, like most people who have lost weight, they're dying to tell you all about it, how they did it, and this and that. And the more she talked, the more my mind was just saying, oh, you poor thing, this is not going to end well. Of course, I didn't say that to her directly. I congratulated her on her weight loss, but I knew what she was in store for. And like I said, coming in the beginning, the rest of this lecture tonight, you love it when you're right about something, but also sometimes it's not so nice to be right. So that was about a year and a half ago, and I would see her a couple of times and, just sort of usual thing, hi, how's it going, that kind of thing. Then as time passed, I noticed she gained a little bit of weight, gained a little bit of weight, gained a little bit of weight. And then, of course, by, I don't know, early this year, last summer, she had gained all her weight back for sure. And I hadn't seen her in a while, maybe, working different shifts or whatever. But this week, last time I saw her, she had maybe gained all her weight back and then maybe, I don't know, 15 pounds on top of that. I'm sad, and I'm sure it weighed on her, emotionally, etc. But then I saw her this week and I haven't seen her in months, and she'd gained at least another 40 pounds maybe on top of the weight she all gained back. So, a year and a half ago, I remember telling my mind, oh, this poor lady, like she's in for a horror show, just based on what she was telling me about how she lost the weight, did everything wrong. Now, a lot of times I come across, I don't have a lot of empathy and a lot of sympathy for people who are in this industry, who talk the talk, but don't have the cock. They can't walk it, they talk it, and they become a complete mess. No, I don't have patience for that. But for consumers outside the industry who don't know any better and buy into nonsense and are damaged because of it and suffer consequences and pain because of it, I have total empathy and sympathy for that. And I could tell when I saw her this week, she didn't want to make eye contact with me, and she kind of deked around a corner, etc. And I could just, feel the shame coming off of her for having gained all her weight back. And I wish she had been in the industry enough that I could pull her aside and say, this isn't your fault. You believed in something that wasn't good for you, and now this is the consequence. Because I'm sure she's self-shaming, self-blaming, and self-hating, which isn't going to get her anywhere near back to where she wants to be. And I wanted to explain to her that her diet that she was so proud of, that had her losing the weight, set in motion exactly where she is now, which is not only back to where she started, but at least another 50, maybe even 60 pounds. She's big compared to before she even dieted. So I feel bad about that, but it's, a cautionary tale. And it's also a statement about me based upon some feedback I've got this week that, sometimes it's fun to be right, like the rest of this webinar, but oftentimes, I wish I was wrong when it comes to reading between the lines of what people are telling me and being able to prognosticate after 4 decades in this industry that, certain people are in for a world of hurt because of what they're doing in the name of health and fitness. And that's just too bad. So that's my cautionary preamble before we get going. And it looks like everybody's here. So I'm going to start with the broadcast. So I got, it wasn't last week. It was the week before because it takes me a while to get these things ready. But people were sending me the same research. And then, of course, when I go up and eat my breakfast every day, I'm watching the news, and the research was also all over the news. And I was, I must have had 20 people send me this. Scott, did you see this? Scott, did you see this? Scott, did you see this? So as much as I wasn't floored by the research, as much as, pop journalism, pop culture news, and people sending me were floored by it, it really didn't floor me all that much. I wasn't all that impressed with it. But I thought, you know what, I better do some kind of a presentation on it. So that's what we're going to do. So if you see the research here, what I'm talking about is this research. I'm just going to bring it up for you there from the Journal of American Medical Association. And it's discussing, hopefully everybody can see that all right. Let me know if you can't. Let me know everything else. But the effect of low fat versus low carbohydrate diet on 12-month weight loss in overweight adults and the association with genotype patterns or insulin secretion called the Diet Fits randomized clinical trial. So there's lots in there. Most people took this as, hey, Scott, did you see this low fat versus low carbohydrate? But there's more to this. It's layered and it's deeper. And I think a lot of the people who were sending me this were missing the point. They were focused on the low fat versus low carb part, and they were missing the stuff that was really germane to the study, especially if you look here, association with genotype pattern or insulin secretion. So we're going to see as I explain this study to you and use some quotes from the authors of the study and some pretty respected nutritionalists who reviewed the study, that a lot of the things that I've already been that I have debunked personally are debunked again. So genotype pattern, what is a genotype? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the nonsense out there that you people continue to believe in is eat right for your blood type, getting your blood done and thinking there's a diet that fits whatever the blood test tells you, getting a hair analysis done, telling you that there's a diet based upon that, which is all complete and utter hokum. And we'll get to that. And the other part here, insulin secretion, once again, we're going to see the debunking of the carbohydrate insulin theory in terms of the research. So now that we turn to me being happy for being proven right, as I said earlier, one story where I wasn't so happy to be right, but now I am. So my book, Understanding Metabolism, is going to play a key role here, because if you go on Amazon and look at the reviews and the people who didn't like it or thumbs down and all that crap, and who wanted to criticize me, you're going to see in this research that I'm vindicated. Something I was saying years ago, proven right in the research now, the research that was sent to me that made me kind of yawn. Once I looked into it, I thought, you know what, I better talk about this, because people are missing the point by thinking this is all about low carb versus low fat when it's so layered and so deep. But having said that, as I review this, you are going to see that this research that's current, it's February 2018, is backed up everything that I've been saying in understanding metabolism, about the uselessness of macro proportioning and formulaic methods and calorie counting and all that. And it also speaks to some of the arguments I was making in terms of Beyond Metabolism, my book. There's a lot of vindication there as well when we start talking about your relationship to food. So things I was saying, several years ago that I put in writing, and I've been attacked and criticized for saying, which is fine. You expect that when you put out. But this study now has caught up to me, and I'm always happy to hear when someone sends me research that catches up to or reinforces something I'm criticized for saying as if I'm out there or whatever. So we're going to get into it. Now, I want to tell you, and everyone can see this all right, just give some thumbs up. And please hit your share buttons, because we're going to get down and dirty, nitty gritty, big and bouncy. So we're going to get into it. Hit your share button if you want people to know what the bad news is for if it fits your macros and Fitbit calorie tracking and the rest. Now, what I'm going to tell you is a lot of the quotations and from the authors, etc., I'm going to use come from the New York Times review of this study. So I will put those in black, but my comments are in blue. So just so we're specifying that and everyone can see what's going on. So I'm going to give you a sort of a blow-by-blow description of the pertinent matters, the germane matters in this study. And really what it is bad news for if it fits your macros and Fitbit calorie tracking. One of the things that stuck out to me, if it fits your macros, was something I was writing against almost right after it came out, talking about the nonsense of, trying to squeeze in snack-sized Snickers bars and, snack-sized bags of chips into your diet because it fit your macros, and how ridiculous that was. But of course, if it fit your macros, any kind of gimmicky online Vogue trend has way more tribal believers and tribal followers than the facts seem to bear out. So of course I was just, every time I tried to talk some sense about that, and I was just lambasted. The tribal warriors would come and hijack my threads and things like that. And what we're going to see here is that I was right all along. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this study that blew up 2 weeks ago. I mean, like I said, at least 20 people sent me the study, and I go upstairs to have breakfast. It was on headline news, and then it was on CNN. I was just like, okay, I better talk about this. Even though to me, it was kind of ho-hum. I already knew this, but apparently most of the rest of the world doesn't, or is confused by the constant influx of contradictory information. So what this study, the JAMA study, was, and Perry, if you want to put the link again in the comment notes, but I'll just keep going. Although everybody and their brother was making this about the low carb versus low fat nature of this study, which is what the study was about, there's a bigger picture, greater picture to pay attention to here. And in this new study by JAMA, like I said, here it is here, effect of low fat versus low carbohydrate diet on 12-month weight loss. 12 months is a good length of time. None of these 12-week windows, transformations, and all that nonsense, 1 year. So that's a reasonably good time when it comes to diet studies in overweight adults and the association with genotype pattern and insulin secretion. So really, really important stuff. Now, in this study, people who ate lots of vegetables and whole foods rather than processed ones lost weight, and look what I put in bold here, without worrying about calories or portion size. Boom. You're going to hear a lot of booms from me tonight because it's reinforcing stuff that I was attacked for saying before. Even in the books that I've written, Understanding Metabolism, Hard Gainer, people will write me, well, how am I supposed to know to increase or decrease portions when you don't have calories there? And how am I, all this North American diet mentality madness that people have internalized, so they're so blind to what is actually common sense. Now, this study is actually bad news for if it fits your macros and Fitbit calorie tracking obsessions. So I'm just going to put the study back up there for you guys to see. And you can look at that if you want, Journal of American Medical Association 2018, and then you can follow the rest there. I'll leave that there for a minute, and then I will remove it. So it's not about calorie counting and macros. My book, and hopefully you can see both of the books I'm referring to behind me. I set them up there proudly tonight. That's the argument in my book, Understanding Metabolism. Boom. The JAMA study found, let me just get rid of this. I've already put that up there enough. Now, the JAMA study found that people who cut back on added sugar, refined grains, keyword refined, highly processed foods while concentrating on eating plenty of vegetables and whole foods without worrying about calorie counting in bold or limiting portion sizes lost significant amounts of weight over the course of a year. Do I need to read that again? Something I've been saying for years and years, and I argued in my book, Understanding Metabolism, that it's not about calorie tracking, calorie counting, and magic formulas. So this already, and I haven't even got into the study yet, is vindication for both of my books. Once again, research catches up and confirms things that was criticized for saying years ago. So that a very momentous Scott Abel boom to that point there, and then we'll continue on. I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of the study because I want people to note the real important matter of this. So the carb-insulin connection was debunked yet again. It's been debunked several times now in recent research, and yet the keto nonsense and the low-carb purveyors who aren't really all that well researched, even though they try to claim they are, simply aren't up on the research. So the carb-insulin thing has been debunked yet again in this research. The nonsense of DNA blood typing diets is also debunked in this research. Now, again, the quotes in black are from the review, the New York Times review, and my comments are in blue. So note, the strategy worked for people whether they followed diets that were mostly low in fat or mostly low in carbohydrates. And their success did not appear to be influenced by their genetics or their insulin response to carbohydrates. So, boom. This is a finding that casts doubt on the increasingly popular idea that different diets should be recommended to people based on their DNA makeup or on their tolerance to carbs or fats. Boom. Once again, the popular misinformed keto argument, low carb argument of carbs and insulin is debunked and disproven here, as is eat right for your body type or going to a naturopath and getting your blood work done and deciding, ooh, you should eat this, not this. Diet by genetics, hucksters. And notice what I put in bold at the top. The key word here, strategy. This was a research strategy that we will see. It wasn't about a diet, a vogue trend diet. Does a low carb work? Does a low fat work? It was about a diet strategy that in essence we will get into. Now, this is bad news for Fitbit calorie trackers and if it fits your macros. The research lends strong support to the notion that diet quality, not quantity, is what helps people lose weight and manage their weight most easily. Key word, most easily in the long run. What have I been lecturing to you all the time? That whatever you're going to make more and more difficult, it's going to be more and more difficult to be a solution in the long term. So by overcomplicating everything, you basically set yourself up for failure. So very important as well. And remember, this here is the writing in black is from the New York Times. It also suggests that health authorities should shift away from telling the public to obsess over calories and instead encourage Americans to avoid processed foods. Boom, bam, pow. What have I been saying in both of those books? Check my points, check my arguments in these books. That's exactly what I was been saying, exactly what I have been attacked for saying. And let me say it again, the review, health authorities should shift away from telling the public to obsess over calories and instead encourage Americans to avoid processed foods. Once again, these are arguments that I made in both of my books, Understanding Metabolism and Beyond Metabolism. This is also reflected in the National Weight Control Registry that monitors people who have lost weight and kept it off And what they found when they did that is they couldn't find less than 1% who did so with low carbs. You had to lose just 30 pounds or more and keep it off for more than 2 years. They found less than 1% who did that with low carbs. And most of them didn't do it by a specific diet. They just ate better. They ate healthier. So once again, when I presented that argument in my podcast and in these books, I was attacked, and people who don't want to hear it, they just shove it aside. And I'm going to get to the diet mentality as well, because consumers are as much to blame for this as well, because consumers want magic over common sense. They want a diet that's by hair analysis. They want a diet that's done by taking their blood and paying $600, $700, $800 for it. They don't want common sense. Michael Pollan, eat food, not a lot, mostly plants. They don't want to hear it, because then they can't hide behind simplification. They got to make everything rocket science, and nutrition is not rocket science. So why are you torturing yourself over outside-in formulations that tell you to ignore your body? That has never made any sense to me, and that is why the Scott Abel method is all about inside-out biofeedback and respecting the wisdom of the body and the messages it gives you. And this research tells you all about that as well. So it's not about the numbers, people. Now, Dr. Dariush Mazafarian, that almost sounds like a Jamaican name, a cardiologist and dean of the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University. And for those of you who don't know, let's just say that's in the top 5 respected nutritional institutions. He was not involved in the study, but reviewed it. Like I said, this study has blown up everywhere, pop culture, in academia, whatever. That's why I'm so proud that it verifies everything that I was attacked for saying. Anyway, Dr. Masafarian said, it's time for U.S. and other national policies to stop focusing on calorie and calorie counting. Bam! Scott Abel reinforcement. Also in my book, Understanding Metabolism, my other books, which from the beginning I've been attacked for saying, but research now confirms this hypothesis. So another little boom there. I'm going to keep saying that because it's time to strike back. Like I said, if you go on Amazon and look at some of the criticisms of these 2 books of mine, you will see a lot about that stuff. And now we see that it's been debunked. Furthermore, one of the things that makes me absolutely insane is this nonsense of DNA, blood tests, hair analysis, diets. They're scams. I don't care if they come from someone you went to see who sits in a lab coat all day behind a big fat desk. It's nonsense, okay? Dr. Gardner, who is the head researcher, and his colleagues designed this study to compare how overweight and obese people would fare on low carbohydrate and low fat diets. But they also wanted to test the hypothesis suggested by previous studies, and the reason that's highlighted there is if you follow this New York Times article, you can click on that and get a gazillion previous studies, that some people are predisposed to do better on one diet over the other, depending on their genetics and their ability to metabolize carbs and fat. Well, that paragraph says a mouthful. Why does it say a mouthful? Because the fitness industry takes this crap and runs with it. This is where notions of carb resistant come from. And this is where people say, well, you can digest carbs and I can't. And the New York Times article continues, a growing number of services has capitalized on this idea by offering people personalized nutrition advice tailored to their genotypes. These blood tests and hair analysis diets are scams. And like I said, it doesn't matter if they come from someone you paid hundreds of dollars to go see and they took blood and they took hair. Stop the nonsense. And that's what this research is led to in their conclusions. It's all about the inside out, folks, not the outside in determinants, biofeedback rules, boom. The new study stands apart, this is the New York Times again, from many previous weight loss trials because it did not set extremely restrictive carbohydrate, fat, or caloric limits on people, and instead emphasized that they focus on eating whole or real foods as much as they needed to avoid feeling hungry. So what did I talk about last week? I talked about the hunger satiety feedback loop and the importance of respecting that biofeedback mechanism. This way, People engage their natural internal hunger satiety feedback loops and learn to listen and respect the wisdom of the body, the inside out approach, rather than try to obey numbers and ignore your biofeedback, the outside in approach that pisses me off. That is why that lady I feel so bad for in the story I began this with, who has gained all her weight back and at least another 30, 40, maybe even more pounds. And I could tell by the way she tried to avoid me, the kind of shame she's carrying along with that weight as well. Makes me want to tear up for her. And I have sympathy and empathy for those people. I don't have it for those of you who claim to be in the fitness industry, who don't know any freaking better, and you keep want to hide behind complication when it's not complicated. So quality over quantity, this is what I discuss in most of my books. And another quote from Dr. Gardner right here: the unique thing is that we didn't ever set a calorie or macro unit number for them to follow. Let me just highlight that, bold it for you. And this is the actual research, head of the research. The unique thing is that we didn't ever set a calorie or macro unit number for them to follow. Need I say it? Boom, shiki, boom, boom. My argument has been that way for years and years. It's how I coach my clients. We get away from numbers. We don't worship numbers. As a matter of fact, that's the Antichrist in nutrition. So the devil is in the details, and this is why none of my diet strategies come with numbers, only portion sizes, and then from there you gauge hunger levels to add or subtract portion sizes accordingly. It's all about the KISS principle. Keep it simple, Scott. Or as I would say, if you weren't all my friends, keep it simple, stupid. And that's the common sense argument. And furthermore, in this research, what did they find? Diet psychology matters. Some people gained weight and some lost as much as 50 to 60 pounds. Dr. Gardner said that people who lost the most weight reported that the study had changed their relationship with food. Bam, pow. What do I talk about in my Busy Woman Train at Home course? What do I talk about in my eating issues course? What do I talk about in Beyond Metabolism? We live in the world of food abundance. You can't ever pretend that pies, cakes, donuts, steaks, burgers, cheeseburgers, fries don't exist. So the people who did the best reported and lost the most weight reported the study had changed their relationship with food. Diet psychology matters. All right. Everyone's putting the cart before the horse. Ooh, I'm low carb. Ooh, I'm high carb. Ooh, I'm paleo. Ooh, I'm keto. And then you size up and you become a member of the tribe where you're like, la, 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 I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Anyone with an outside opinion. And yet you're all talking past each other about things that don't even matter or equate to long-term sustainable weight loss. If you look at the research at the National Industry of Weight Control, then you will see what I'm talking about. So a little bam and pow, and that in bold, changed their relationship with food. They no longer ate in their cars or in front of their television screens, and they were cooking more at home and sitting down to eat dinner with their families, for example. If you look in my book, Beyond Metabolism, and Perry, you can throw up the link to that if you want. And when I get to the discussion section, maybe I'll put it up there. I have whole chapters on the real relevance to lose weight and control weight has to do with the general and not the micro, and not the specific. So it has to do with regimented meal times, regimented sleep and wake times, the stuff that no one wants to hear about because it's not sexy enough. All right. Well, it's time to bring unsexy back when it comes to nutritional common sense. So this is a concept, like I said, in Beyond Metabolism, one of the main thrusts of the argument, especially for people out there with food and eating issues that you think you're going to solve with a diet. You never solve a problem at the same level of thinking that causes it. You don't have a problem with food and weight. You have a thinking and feeling problem about food and weight. And that's what this research, when he said people with the most weight, who lost the most weight, reported the study changed their relationship with food. Diet psychology matters. And it is diet psychology matters of diet psychology. No one wants to talk about that when they're screaming at each other about keto versus carbs and all the rest of it, meat first and all this other kind of stuff. So common sense versus a desired belief in magic. And what do I mean here? I deliberately put the word desired there, belief in magic. People have a desire to believe in the overcomplication and the overly scientific, pseudoscientific approach to their weight issues because, in essence, they want to hide behind something. So, like I said, they want a hair sample that tells them that they can't eat nightshade vegetables. They want a blood sample that says, oh, you're type AB, you're more of a meat first. All this kind of stuff. Oh, I'm glad I paid $600 to my naturopath for that. Oh, you also need these 40 supplements that we just happen to sell here in our office and keeps all this nice leather furniture that we have. Common sense versus the consumer desire for a belief in magic solutions, magic potions, magical and mystical nutritionists, usually ones in the vogue nutrition world who have no background at all in academia. Even the doctors, Dr. Atkins was not a nutritional research specialist or scientist. So back to the New York Times review. We really stressed to both groups again and again that we wanted them to eat high quality foods, Dr. Garner said. We told them all that we wanted them to minimize added sugar and refined grains, eat more vegetables and whole foods. We said, don't go out and buy a low-fat brownie just because it says low-fat. And those low-carb chips, don't buy them because they're still chips, and that's gaming the system. In other words, processed foods. What did I talk about a couple weeks ago with the nonsense of keto bars and all this other stuff, Atkins bar and all the rest? It's the same nonsense. If it comes in a package, a jar, or a canister, it's not food. So there you go. And then he continues, we wanted for them to find a new eating pattern they could maintain without thinking of it as a diet. How many people do you talk about who are trying to lose weight ever talk about that? They don't talk about it's a new lifestyle for me. It's my lifestyle. They talk about I'm low carb, I'm keto, I'm this, I'm that. I'm in this tribe. What tribe are you in? And none of it has a bearing on sustainable long-term weight loss without torture. So what Dr. Garner is saying here, we wanted for them to find a new eating pattern they could maintain without even thinking of it as a diet. That's why those people who lost the most weight said it changed their relationship with food because they no longer thought of it as a diet. All right. This is what I call a diet strategy. When people order a one-time diet from me, they get a diet strategy. They don't get numbers. They don't get calories. They don't get macro proportions. And yet the new study found that after 1 year of focusing on food quality, not calories, the two groups lost substantial amounts of weight. Why and how? The message here, the body knows. Your body isn't stupid. You are. Your body is brilliant. It's wise. If you just feed it real food and listen to it respond, you will know real hunger from psychological appetite. You will know real hunger from societal induced food triggers, like driving past a donut shop that smells really good or walking past a bakery. You will understand and learn and know the difference because your body already knows and it's set up to know. It gets confused and dysregulated when you feed it all this other stuff. So the DNA diet debunked, blood test diet and hair analysis diets stop the nonsense. Here's where we get specific about that. The researchers took DNA samples from each subject and analyzed a group of genetic variances that influence fat and carbohydrate metabolism. Look what I got in bold here. Ultimately, the subjects' genotypes did not appear to influence their responses to the diet. There you go. Hair analysis, blood samples, eat right for your blood type, DNA diet, and other related nonsense that I've already lectured about and I've already debunked. Stop the nonsense, all right? Now, here's a little something for you, all right? This Eat Right for Your Body Type clown that wrote that book sold 5 million copies. This speaks to what I was talking about in the previous slide. people have a desired belief in magic. Now, once the academics got a hold of this and studied it, you can find tons and tons of research that says there's no valuable tangible evidence for such nonsense. Eat right for your blood type and DNA diets and the rest of it. He started responding to his critics that no one studied it yet and this and that. So one of his critics, I think it was Dr. Michael Greger, I'm not sure who, said, well, you sold 5 million copies. Why don't you conduct your own research with some of that money? So he said, oh, I'm coming out with my own research. Well, this was like 15 years ago, and guess what? That research never happened. So there you go. What did I say when I first started doing these live webinars? My first, 6 episodes were on low-carb lies and the politics for profit. Well, this eat right for your blood type just falls into that category. Sell people overly complicated reasons why they're overweight. Don't tell them it has to do with their lifestyle. Don't tell them it has to do with real commitment and their lack thereof. Don't tell them any of that. Tell them it's complicated nonsense like their blood type and they're on board. But there's no evidence to support that at all. And when push come to shove, and when the author who sold 5 million copies was told to put his money where his mouth is, guess what happened? Nothing happened. So there you go. I should write a book if I was just worried about profits, get a publisher, write a book. Oh, wait a minute, I've written several of them, but I guess common sense solutions don't sell millions of copies. And furthermore, get back to the research, carb and insulin connection debunked. The researchers also, and remember, everything in black is from the New York Times. My comments are in blue. Sometime they overlap. The researchers also looked at whether people who secreted higher levels of insulin in response to carbohydrate intake, a barometer of insulin resistance, did better on the low-carb diet. This is the low-carb mythology, fantasy land world, Jolly Green Giant argument. All right, this is the nursery rhyme fable that the low-carbsters who don't do their homework argue about. The insulin response into carbohydrate intake, a barometer of insulin resistance, then since this study compared low fat to low carb, we should have seen a difference. So the researchers looked at whether people who secreted higher levels of insulin in response to carbs did better on a low carbohydrate diet. Surprisingly, they did not. Bam, pow. What have I been saying? The carb-based, plant-based diet. Dr. Gardner said this is somewhat disappointing because even as a researcher, he was hoping to find some kind of guidance in that regard. In other words, the measure of insulin production used in this trial failed to predict weight changes. That's Dr. Gardner's words, not mine. So let me say that again. In other words, the measure of insulin production used in this trial failed to predict weight changes. So if the insulin argument held true, and since this research study was comparing low carb to low fat, then there should have been some kind of trigger to the people who were eating low fat, higher carb because they had higher insulin production, and yet that didn't pan out in the study. How many times have I said that? And Dr. Gardner continues, it would have been sweet to say we have a simple clinical test that will point out whether you're insulin resistant or not and whether you should eat more or less carbs, he added, but we cannot. So there goes the whole keto nonsense, fitness industry nonsense, and let's get rid of buzzwords that should have died a death a long time ago, like carb resistant. I'm carb resistant. No, you're not. There's no evidence of this anywhere. So once again, industry buzzwords like carb resistant are not true. Bam, boom, pow. How long have I been saying this? And yet real research, now this research is not just, like I said, this has been extolled and glorified, and it's been making the rounds. So this research is a big deal, even though I've been putting it in my little wee books years ago. So here we go. But it took something like this. So then again, one of the most respected real nutrition research specialists of all time, Dr. Walter Willett, and you know the big book that I bring out every so often, the 3,000 page. He's one of the main editors of that book, Modern Nutrition and Health and Disease. He's also chairman of the nutrition department at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Again, one of the top 5, if you don't know, out there, one of the top 5 most respected schools of nutrition out there. What did he say in bold? What do I have here? The study does not support a precision medicine approach to nutrition. He's basically saying, stop the nonsense, stop the macros, stop the hair analysis, stop the blood tests, and stop all this precision. You know, the kind of nonsense where after your workout, you need to have 45.4 grams of carbohydrates for your window of opportunity, as long as it's 22 minutes and 30 seconds after your workout. Stop the nonsense. You know, the branch chain amino acid infusion while you're training. All this outside in precise science of nutrition is misleading at best. And this is what I argued in Understanding Metabolism, and particularly beyond metabolism, I talk about the concept of an illusion of control. You think your Fitbit is giving you an illusion of control of your metabolism while you're ignoring that very thing. That makes absolutely no sense at all. And using these things, these illusion of control, to think that you are actually programming and dictating your metabolism is only adding stress and self-disconnect, because you start worshiping and obeying the numbers and ignoring your own biofeedback cues, and then you wonder why you can't sustain weight loss. It's not about the macros. Boom. Furthermore, what else did Dr. Willett said? Dr. Willett, commenting on this study, this is the New York Times again, he said, the most important message of this study was that a high-quality diet produced substantial weight loss, and that the percentage of calories from fat or carbs did not matter, which is consistent with other studies. Boom, including my studies. Percentages of carbs and fat, in other words, macros, and if it fits your macros, did not matter, which is consistent with other studies. And if you go to the New York Times article, the reason this is in blue and underlined is that within the online New York Times article, you can click on that and see a lot of these other studies that say the same thing. The percentage of calories from fat and carbs did not matter. Only in the twisted nonsense of the fitness industry do these things seem to, this precision science of nutrition, take precedence over the wisdom of the body. And what we see is when it's studied, it all falls apart and it all falls in on itself. The bottom line, Dr. Willett said, diet quality is important for both weight control and long-term well-being. Boom, bam, ping, pow. I just feel like I've gone 15 rounds with the heavyweight champ and knocked him out. This is bad news for If It Fits Your Macros. Bad news for Fitbit calorie tracking obsession. The problem here is no one's going to see it because everyone thinks this study is all about the low carb versus the low fat. That's not what they are saying here, and people need to see the forest for the trees. So Fitbit calorie tracking obsession, once again, reinforcing the common sense argument of a healthy whole foods plant-based diet and making that diet work while respecting biofeedback as the wisdom of the body. What do I preach to you about? The wisdom of the inside out approach and how we've become so alienated from our own bodies, and how you lose weight and get it back is to become reconnected from that disconnect. And that's in my book, Beyond Metabolism, as well. And that really, really is the essential point. Other things that the researchers wanted people to know: a calorie deficit. These people, whether they were low carb or low fat, they were in a calorie deficit without forcing one from the outside in. Again, bad news for Fitbit calorie trackers, and bad news for If It Fits Your Macros. How and why? What are they saying? Dr. Gardner, head of this research, director of this study, said that it's not that calories don't matter. After all, both groups ultimately ended up consuming fewer calories on average by the end of the study, even though they were not conscious of it. So I need to reread and explain this point. They ate less calories, but they weren't conscious of it. It wasn't an outside-in dictation from the food police and a dictatorship coming from your phone on your Fitbit. They were eating healthy whole foods, which makes it harder to take in too many calories. The point is that they did this by focusing on nutritious whole foods that satisfied their hunger. Now, that's in black. That's a quote from Dr. Gardner, not me. And on what I'm adding there is respecting, not ignoring essential biofeedback loops, something I preach in both of those books, in my other books, and Permanent Weight Loss, and in my food issues course for women, that This reflects an inside-out approach that respects the wisdom of the body, in this case, the hunger satiety feedback loop that often gets so damaged and so disrupted by outside-in diet approaches, and not just diet approaches. How many people have written me? I don't know if Sherry's still on board, but people writing me, telling me about their friends who are up past their bedtime, driving to go somewhere to climb stairs so they can get all their steps in. What the hell? I mean, you're gonna obey numbers over the wisdom of your body. So, we go back thousands of years to Buddha. When you're hungry, eat. When you're tired, sleep. When you're thirsty, drink, and get up and walk. Once again, reflecting the inside-out hunger satiety loop and respecting it. What did I talk about last week? How many apples can you really sit down to and binge eat on? I challenge all of you to take that challenge. Decide on your next refeed day that your first meal is going to be to binge eat on apples. See how many you get through and add up those calories and tell me you couldn't do the same. How many French fries could you eat? How much steak? How much ice cream? How much popcorn at the movies could you eat before you would stop? The hunger satiety feedback loop to natural foods is naturally inclined and will reconnect you with your body. That's what this study is saying without being able to say it. They can't really say it because that's not what they were looking at. So again, to me, why, oh, why is this just not common sense anymore? Why does it require research and explication in detail of that research? Why? Because of the North American diet mentality. That's why. So once again, what they are reinforcing is a quote you'll find in both of those books of mine that you'll see behind me from Einstein. And I have to say it again here, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Well, the diet industry has this upside down for you. They want you to count everything and tell you that's what counts. And then research after research is telling you that's not the way it is inside your body. So hopefully that's making sense. Now, the no difference conclusion between the low fat, low carb is a tenuous conclusion at best. You have to remember this study looked primarily at weight loss. If we consider no weight loss advantage to either protein sparing approach of low carb or low fat, we should consider a health advantage to being in a more plant-based, which by inclusion means more carbs, more carb-based diet. There really is no debate on that front if you do your homework. The plant-based diet is healthier by all long-term marks and measures, and I will be talking about that in future episodes as well. So there you go. Making this and this study, even though it was about low carbs versus low fat, for you, the consumer, and you, the reader, and all the people, and I thank all the people who did send me, over 20 of you sent me this study, and it was on the news. But making this about low carbs versus low fat misses some really, really important points. Yes, in this study, all individuals who lost weight showed improved health markers as well, whether low carbs or low fat. That's misleading because that is indicative of the weight being lost, not the diet strategy followed to lose it. Lots of people follow ill-advised, very catabolic diets, and in the residual time frame, remember the three elements of time that matter: the immediate, the residual, and the cumulative. In the residual time frame, health markers just from losing weight, even if you're starving to do it, will improve. So that is not indicative that both are equally healthy. If we then control for long-term approaches that consider overall health and disease prevention, then the more carb-based, plant-based approach is simply superior. And you can see last week's webinar that I did for more on that. So my books written way, way before this study. My books are vindicated yet again. Boom, shakalaka, boom, boom. All right, I have to say that because of the amount of people who sent me inanely moronic remarks that I can't even respond to because, like I said, when it comes to social media, I don't mediate with morons and I don't argue with idiots. But this actually reinforced stuff I said years ago, and then everyone was like, where's your research and blah, blah, blah. This study reinforces arguments I was attacked and criticized for saying. So again, vindicated, boom, bam, ping, pow, and allow me some self-indulgence on that, because you have to live a year in my shoes to see what that's like when you're getting attacked and criticized by people, who really couldn't write a sentence on a chalkboard with a piece of chalk. So the takeaway point to all of this is, now this is something I want to be really specific and clear about. This industry's consumers are full of people who like the talk of playing the game. All right. This is what I'm talking about. They talk about their Fitbit and their number of steps and their percent macros and their carbs and their calorie targets and all this stuff. They're playing the game. They're followers. All right. Other people who really and truly get it are out there winning the game by not playing it in the first place. Boom, shakalaka, laka, boom, boom. That is the takeaway point to all of this. Your body knows. And if you start working with it instead of on it, and you start treating your body like your lifetime partner and not your lifetime project, then you're going to have the healthy, robust, healthy quality mindset that determines quality of behavior. Why the people in this study said that the ones who were most successful at losing weight, said it was because it changed their relationship with food. So putting aside the low carb, low fat test of weight loss on this study, there's plenty of other points to be made. So I go back to the JAMA Journal of American. If you want to see it again, I'll just put it up there for you. Now, what I want to say here is, remember all of the other things that were in here that I talked about, all right, that were pertinent to the study. Diet psychology matters. Macros don't matter. Percentage of calories don't matter. Genotype nonsense of blood analysis, hair analysis, eat right for your type is a bunch of hokum. All right. It's a bunch of yucky, stinky, poo-poo caca. All right. And we need to start calling these things out for what they are. So this study and the researchers, the most respected nutritionists on the planet who commented on it, were backing up arguments that I've been making in those two books and criticized for making for years. Bad news for If It Fits Your Macros, even though their tribal membership is 10 times my size, and they'll come running to attack me on this. And bad news for Fitbit calorie tracking obsession, because it's not going to get you to where you want to go. And like I've said in most of my books, the anti-diet approach to weight loss and weight control is another one. Perry, you can put in the comment section. What did I say in that book? Even if it does take you to where you want to go, you're going to be so exhausted by the process of getting there that you'll never stay there. And I talk about that in my books. Psychological diet rebellion goes on all the time. Another reason people rebound in weight is because they rebel against the psychological torture of living outside in number crunching that ignores their body, and they can't take it anymore. So tons of stuff in this study that you should consider and you should look at. And of course, a little bit of chest pounding on my behalf, but some of it is just, of course, a little bit of fun. And like I said, at the beginning, sometimes I don't like being right. It sucks for me when I'm right about the story I told at the beginning, but other times I'm glad to be ahead of the research, when usually I say something that's considered outrageous and the research catches up to me. All those people who criticize me, they're no longer even in the industry, let alone, being able to apologize, which is something no one does anyway. So Perry's just putting up some links there for you folks. Anti-diet approach. I think there's some short links you could probably find there, Perry. So very, very important there. So there's some of the anti-diet approach. And by all means, folks, just go to scottabelfitness.com and you can do there. So I'm just welcoming your comments here. So Adam says, I'm inspired. I'm going to try a fruit and veggie binge. Yeah, try it. See how far you get. And then if you want to actually crunch the numbers, go ahead, see how high you get, and then tell me you couldn't have got the same with just a cheat meal. So, but I I've never met anyone yet who could binge eat on more than 5 or 6 apples and that's by overeating. That's by trying to eat extra. So very, very important. So Perry's just saying most people don't fundamentally understand how the human body works, therefore they're gullible. But there's more to it. They've internalized from a young age that this is all about magic, and they want to believe in magic because it's something. People write me all the time. They're worried about a friend who's done and the money they spend to just please tell me there's something magical. All of a sudden I can't eat nightshade vegetables. All of a sudden I can't eat, and it's getting to being beyond ridiculous. Let's bring back some common sense. So Angie's just saying she loves this webinar, how I've kept my weight off for a decade by ignoring and stop following the crap diets out there. And Mike's just saying, I don't think I've ever seen Coach this passionate. Well, I don't know. I guess I'm in the mood, Mike. One of the things I'm passionate about, Mike, is people like yourself who have lost all the weight that you have lost and, done so well doing it. So, kudos to you, Mike, on that. And we're going to have some pictures of Mike in a future episode as well. So Perry's just posting, a link to my one-time custom diet. So, very important stuff. So, and then talking about metabolism, of course, Andy's just saying he's in the Papa John's Hall of Fame because, we can overeat and refeed and want to overeat and refeed to optimize metabolism. We're not going to do that with apples. We can certainly do it with pizza. So Mike's just saying hashtag truth bombs. I guess that might be a good hashtag for people to put when I put us on my YouTube channel or even after this is done. So, and Brian's just saying, is there an app from my Apple Watch that does biofeedback? I'm sure there's an app on there that does something. I know there's apps like track your heartbeat all day long and all this stuff. So I didn't realize I was ranting so much and preaching so much. I guess I was. Everyone's commenting on that. So, and Monica's just saying, yep, anything but the truth. They'll do anything for it. Yeah, it's almost like we socialize people to come up to want to believe in complicating what's simple and simplifying what's complicated. And that's really, really unfortunate, unfortunate stuff. So Olivia, back from my old stomping grounds, great session. No, I'm glad you liked. So, and then Perry's just saying one of Alan Cosgrove's quotes, Alan's been on my podcast before. People don't want to be told the truth. They want to just want to be told that they're right. And we have way too much nutritional tribalism going on in this industry. So, not a lot of comments. I thought there'd be more. Oh, here we go. MD Physical Medicine Coaching. I wish I had a name I could attach to that. That's quite a handle to respond to, but deeply appreciate your lectures. I have a supplement world story for you. A friend of mine, against my advice, decided to take the new pro hormone. He was only 9 days in and developed 2+ edema, bilateral calves, ankles, and blood pressure spikes. Likely something in that then. I've talked about this before. In my experience in the supplement world, how a company would get a reputation ahead of other companies is they would spike their initial release with steroids and other things. So if it was a fat burner, they would spike it with methamphetamine or some kind of amphetamine. If it was a muscle builder, they would spike it with oral steroid powders. If it was a creatine, they would do that kind of thing. And then they would get this instant reputation. And since the supplement industry is really non-regulated and hardly ever tested, it's virtually impossible to catch these people. But I did do lots of lecturing on that as well. I think it was 2010. Well, 2010 was when I did my workshop, so it might have not have been the same year. But GNC, of course, their stuff was tested and came back testing positive for anabolic steroids and things like that. So this is common practice in the supplement industry. MD Physical Medicine Coaching happens all the time. I would suggest there was probably something pharmaceutical in whatever mixture that was to try to get a jump on earning a reputation for that supplement. So, here's a new viewer, I think. Shanae just saying, thanks for the info, Scott. Very eye-opening. Just curious, when you were in competition prep, did you not use macros, calorie counting with clients? I sometimes did and I sometimes didn't. Mind you, that was a lot of years ago too. So I wasn't nearly as advanced in my research as I am now. I did it for some people who I felt psychologically needed to rely on it. I didn't do it for myself. I didn't do it for other clients. If they wanted to go crunch the numbers and bring them back to me, they could. But I will say this. When my people were light years ahead of the other competitors, and anyone from my era will tell you that my competitors just had a look that you could tell right away when someone came on the stage that Scott Abel trained that person. I will say this, we did low-fat diets, low fat, not low carbs. So I will say that much. And having said that, no, I really didn't focus too much on macros. Now, when I write books and stuff, I do that strictly because one of the first books when I wrote, and it came back to me from the editors that you need to put this stuff in there because the only questions you're going to get are, what are the calories? What's the protein? Why? This and that. So I did it more to cater to the consumer expectation than actually what needs. It's an old marketing thing called, give people what they want, but also give them what they actually need. So I kind of do a little bit of both, hard gainer solution, things like that. You will see calorie counts, but that's because in order to change things, you have to speak with the specific language as it exists right now. So I can't do hard right-hand turns with people if I don't speak their language. I can't post traffic signs in Chinese if everywhere else they're in English. So in speaking the language of consumer nutrition, unfortunately, you have to often speak numbersese. You have to speak in numbers, and then they're okay with it. Then they're like, tell me more. But if you do what I'm doing in this lecture by saying numbers are full of crap, then you lose them already. So there's a difference there. So very important stuff. But great comment, Shanae. I hope I'm saying that right. Cool name. And then Vince is just saying being fixated on numbers, purely psychological issue, rather than one that's going to be the game changer in physical development or body comp changes. Well, what we see here, Vince, in this study is the authors themselves and the people who reviewed it even themselves were saying the game changer is the changed relationship they had with food. The most successful people in this study reported that the study itself changed their relationship with food. Now, what does that say by exclusion? It says the people who weren't as successful couldn't get over themselves, couldn't get past themselves to change their relationship with food. They held on to their North American diet mentality insanity, and that's likely why they didn't do as well. So really, really important stuff. Any other comments, folks, or questions? Hopefully you benefited from that. Put a lot of work into this one. I wasn't even going to use it, but then once I did it, I thought it was worth commenting on for other reasons than its purported importance on low carb versus low fat. Because when I watched the news coverage of this study, unfortunately, it was all about the buzzwords to get your attention: low carb versus low fat, no difference. And actually, that's sad because it missed some of the main points and main thrusts of this research. So Perry's just putting up their free content at scottabelfitness.com/food issues. If you've taken my food issues questionnaire before, you can see all about, healthy diet psychology, whether you have one or not. So hopefully, folks, you'll hit your share button more and more. Facebook is clamping down on my reach. They've been doing that for a while, so I'm getting less and less reach as I get more and more popular because they want me to buy ad space and stuff. So that's unfortunate, but it helps if you guys hit your share buttons and by all means comment. And I'm sure once this hits the If It Fits Your Macros crowd, they're going to become, with their torches looking to hang me from the highest tree, as they did every time every time I talk about it. But this is the research, folks, that says, and I read it to you right from the actual best researchers on the planet, most respected nutritionists on the planet, macros of carbs or fats did not matter. So, and you see the same thing if you go to the National Registry of Weight Control. So hopefully that's it. You're hitting your emoticons and your likes and your hearts and all that stuff. I can't see them on my end with this software, but hopefully you're doing that. And by all means, share and let people know if they want a spoonful of truth medicine every week. They can tune in here and I'll be happy to give it to them, and spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So that's it for me, folks. One more time, the book's behind me and this research, boom, bam, boom, shakalaka, pow, bing, vindicated for stuff I was saying. And the research has finally caught up to me and I'm happy about that. So, stay strong, people. Stay objective. Stay open-minded. Try not to be tribal, and learn from the right people. And it should be obvious to you who those right people are if you have an open mind. I was listening recently on YouTube to arguments between plant-based and meat-based people, supposed arguments back and forth, and I couldn't believe there was anything to argue about because the non-plant-based people sounded like idiots. And that's me listening with an open mind. They would say conjecture without any research, without anything. And then the other plant-based people would calmly, make a point with research. And it just boggled my mind that people were still divided. And that just tells you that people are very tribal. They want to believe that their eating habits are the best. And what did we see in this research? There is no precise medicine approach to nutrition and wellness. So that's it for me, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit your share buttons. I'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I will see you all later.